Welcome back to another episode of Shabbat Shmoozes. This week's parsha is Parshat Shemini. I think I've learned one of the greatest lessons of my entire life by just 2 words in this week's parsha. When Aharon haKohen was informed that his 2 sons, Nadav and Avihu, were tragically killed, it says that Aharon responded in the following way: Vayadom Aharon, and Aharon was silent. That's something that we're going to delve into, because I can tell you that this has been something that has guided me through so many reactions to tragedies and reactions to turmoil in my personal life. Aharon was silent. Chazal break it down for us, and they say he wasn't silent because he was shocked. He wasn't silent because he was mad. He was silent because he understood that Hashem knows much better than he does. And although he can't control what's happening, he can control the way he reacts to what's happening. That silence of Aharon was pure acceptance that Hashem runs the world. It was pure humility that he can't change anything, but he can accept the way Hashem runs the world. And that acceptance, it's so important to recognize that Vayadom Aharon, and Aharon was silent. That surrendering to Hashem was the ultimate way of showing Hashem his emunah and his bitachon in Hashem. When we surrender to the will of Hashem, it's not an act of passivity. It's not like we're saying, oh, I'm done, I give up. Surrendering is not giving up, it's giving over. Aharon gave over his trust to Hashem. And sometimes in life, especially the past couple of weeks, when we can't understand the how, we must trust the who. I read a beautiful quote by Rivka Malka Perlman. It says, the quieter you are, the more you can hear. And that was really the way Aharon responded to Hashem after he knew that his sons were killed. He understood that he has to be silent to be able to have that understanding between him and Hashem, that Hashem knows what he's doing, although we can't understand. I heard an incredible story by Rabbi Pesach Krohn, where he spoke about this woman named Oma. And Oma told over the story to Rabbi Krohn herself, and she said that her and her husband Alex were during the Holocaust, they were newly married, and the Germans, Yimach Shemam, were taking all the Jews out of the city. But Oma and her husband worked for a day school. Her husband was a Judaic studies teacher, and Oma worked in general studies. And they were completely poverty-stricken, and since they were Jews wearing the yellow star of Jude, their food was being rationed. So they were only being given a limited amount of flour and bread and eggs every month. In fact, she was only able to receive 4 eggs every month. No delicacies, no chocolate, no butter. So she understood that their situation was very dire, but still she wanted to maintain a certain level of lichvod Shabbat Kodesh for her and her husband, Alex. So every single week, in honor of Shabbat, she would bake a small cake using one of those 4 eggs she was given per month in honor of Shabbat, to make it a beautiful experience for her and her husband, Alex. One day, as she's preparing the cake for Shabbat, she cracks that one egg, and as she opens it, she sees there's a small spot of blood. We know as Jews that if there's any blood in our egg, it renders it not kosher. After all, this is Kosherdotcom. So she knows that she's looking at this egg. She cannot use this egg. In fact, she cannot use any of the ingredients. And she's thinking to herself, what do I do? I'm not going to have any egg. I'm not going to have any cake this week. Do I throw out this egg? Do I throw out my batter? Or my husband Alex won't necessarily know if I just peel away that piece of blood from in the yolk. After all, it's not super embedded into the yolk. I could probably get away with just peeling it out. And she has this idea. Do I just use the egg? Because after all, we're poor. We don't even know if we're going to survive the week. After all, there are no rebbeim here that I can ask them shilas. And then she thinks to herself, but you know what? She can't do this to Hashem. Hashem gave us laws. She knows that she really cannot use an egg that contains some blood in it. And her husband Alex trusts her. She can't betray his trust. So she's going back and forth thinking, what am I going to do? Finally, she makes a decision. I trust Hashem. Although this is a horrible situation to happen, I'm going to throw away the egg. I'm going to throw away the contents of the bowl. I'm going to start from scratch. Who knows what next week brings? But next week is next week. Right now, I will trust Hashem in this nisayon. And she decides, instead of doing away with the cake that week, she's just going to use next week's egg for this week's cake. And she takes that egg and she cracks it and she opens it up and she sees she has a twin yolk. So she tells the story to Rabbi Pesach Brown. Of course, she saves the second yolk for next week's egg. And she felt like in that moment of her silence, where she didn't cry, she didn't get angry, she didn't yell, she didn't curse, she didn't throw things. She really accepted her nisayon and she accepted Hashem's decree. And right then, it's like Hashem spoke back to her by giving her a double yolk so that she could use one for this week and one for next week. So I think for this week, our lesson, our homework is that go silent when you can't understand what's going on. Don't answer back, don't scream, don't curse, don't fire back. Accept in silence, vayadom Aharon. And in that, surrender to the will of Hashem. It's the ultimate test of emunah that we can pass, especially with so much craziness and chaos going on around us. Let us all choose silence, and let us all not give up, because we're Jews. We don't give up, but let's give over to Hashem and trust that although we totally cannot understand the how, we will trust the who. Shabbat Shalom.